Yeah, see you later. Right. So yeah, it was good coincidence that the Lecture in Progress, the publication, they asked me to use some of my stuff on the cover. So I've known Will and Alex from It's Nice That since they were students back in the day. So and in a way, by working hard and being nice to people, especially those two, I still, it's like I've been part of their kind of journey as well. So it's kind of, I think that, that's the first lesson of today is, just to be nice to everyone, because you never know, most people do eventually kind of grow up from being students into being professionals. I've noticed that. That's one thing I've noticed. And I think when I first met them, I just thought, kind of help them out, do some bits for them, and then now they're like global kind of overlords, and it's just, amazing. So anyway, that's a little ramble to get things going. So obviously I'm here to plug my book. You've probably already got copies of it, so and here's a little film of me looking at it and kind of much smaller in real life. So I'm from the analog era. I was born in the 60s. Can you imagine that? And I was educated in the 80s. So kind of being in this very digital environment is kind of quite different for me. So yeah, it's when I was young. That's 1989. Yeah, amazing. So look, you're the physical manifestation of my entire career. So yeah, look at the hair. So here's another life lesson. If you're young and you've got good hair, enjoy it. It's a fleeting experience. So this is the Royal College of Art in London. So you can see the kind of standard of education that was on offer in those days. So a few things about this photograph. You'll notice there aren't any computers. Remember, this is 1989, so computers didn't exist. The only computer was owned by NASA, I think, in those days. I think that's right. So nobody cool used a computer. All the cool people used a photocopier to make their work. So this is kind of work that I produced on the photocopier, obviously being a cool person, and avoiding computers, because computers were just too complicated to use in those days. You had to, you had to go into a white room it was like a kind of laboratory situation, and there was somebody there to show you how to draw a square, and it'd take about half an hour to draw a square. I thought, I can do that with a pencil in about 2 seconds, so why would I need to use a computer? So I played around with the photocopier, and this is the stuff I did, and it was all about kind of texture and letter forms and kind of collaging and kind of finding things to kind of stick down. My background was in illustration and more of a kind of fine art stuff really. I used to make sculptures and kind of just kind of do weird stuff. There wasn't really graphic design. So when I got to Royal College, everybody talked about typography all the time, and I was really frightened of it because it seemed really complicated. Until I started looking at things like letterpress and stencils, and this kind of stuff kind of got me interested in typography really. So this is just after I left the Royal College in the early 90s. So that's me on the left, feeling very optimistic about the future. I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do, so as soon as I left, I was just like, well, what's going to happen next? There's no way I wanted to get a job anywhere, because I didn't really want to get a job. So I kind of just wanted to kind of sort of carry on being a student, really, and I've pretty much done that ever since. I've managed never to have a job, so that's my first big achievement. So I used to make these little kind of photocopy publications. So I'd print off a few copies and then send them out to people. So this was my kind of marketing campaign. Sometimes I would never put my phone number on these things I sent out, and just imagine that people would be able to find me through some mysterious way. I was completely, I hated using the phone. I used to get my wife to call people on my behalf. So yeah, I was terrible. I think kind of making work and kind of trying to get your work out there in those days was incredibly difficult. There were like 2 magazines that talked about graphic design. There just wasn't the culture, the visual culture that there is now. So yeah, I sound ancient, don't I? I'm about 300 years old. It's not long ago, is it? But things have moved really fast since then. So I used to make all these kind of little photocopy books and send them out to people. So obviously, I've never been normal. And I've never, don't try to be ordinary anyway. I've always just had this kind of sense that I was kind of going somewhere, and I never sort of questioned what I was doing. I just kind of carried on doing it really, always been very focused. So that's me when I was 9, and that's my sister on the right. This is a genuine photograph. And that's Misty, the pony in the middle. So yeah, don't be ordinary. Have Christmas dinner with a pony. And the kind of unseen hand offering a bottle of wine. Can you see there? And I'm looking straight into the future. So this is just after the Royal College. So those little photocopy books I used to make, a guy called Eric Kessel's got a copy, and he was setting up an agency in Amsterdam called Kessel's Kramer. Some of you might have heard of it. And one of their first campaigns was for the Hans Brinker budget hotel, the worst hotel in the world. It's official. So this is the bridal suite / presidential suite. So yeah, it's pretty awful. So we made this campaign. So this is in about 95, something like that. So yeah, it's just about how awful the Hans Brinker is. It was the anti-marketing idea, so like anti-advertising, kind of being completely honest about how awful it was. And lo and behold, it became a really popular thing. Everyone kind of wanted to kind of go and stay there. So these posters, we just made, I think we made like 20 posters, and they fly posted them, and then they got picked up and were in Creative Review magazine. That was a big moment when I had my first kind of postage stamp size image in Creative Review. I was like, yes, I've made it. So this kind of launched my career sort of in advertising, really. So it's used a lot as a reference for a way that brands can kind of talk about themselves, but still be, still have a kind of completely light-hearted and kind of interesting way of speaking. So with all this stuff, I was still kind of making stuff with a photocopier, still sticking out letters and sticking them down with glue. So the actual artwork for these was like an A4 kind of thing that I faxed to Eric, and he printed it. Who are you? What do you want? It's like, what do you want from yourself? What do you want from your career? What do you want? How do we all fit in? I think that's the question that everyone kind of asks. Well, it's a question that I have always kind of asked myself, really. How do I want to kind of work and operate in creative community? So I kind of work a lot with letterpress and screen print and kind of digital, not digital, the opposite of digital, analog. Analog is the opposite of digital. I'm confused being in this place. I'm much more at home in this place, which is in Rye, near where I live, down in East Sussex. So this is a letterpress printer's workshop. And that's me enjoying walking around it, looking at things. So when we first moved down to Kent, which is next to East Sussex, I saw these posters around the town, and they're all really beautifully printed in letterpress. So I found out where they were all printed, and it was at Adams of Rye. So it's just an amazing resource, a kind of letterpress heaven, really. It's kind of place that every town would have had up until the sort of early 70s, when when people stopped kind of using letterpress, really. So Rye is a very sort of traditional, kind of quite old-fashioned time machine. And it's kind of trapped in the past a little bit, in a good way. And they've kind of kept all this stuff. So you have things like ink, lovely, smelly ink. So this was the first thing that got them to print for me. This is in 2004, and it's still going strong.
So strong.
So this was a phrase that I'd overheard in a supermarket in Clapham. I've recounted this story many times, but it's a good one. So I stood in the queue, and there was an old lady in front of me, and she was talking to the checkout girl, and they were having a conversation about cat food. And at the end of the conversation, she said, the secret to a happy life is to work hard and be nice to people. And it was just one of those phrases that I just kind of thought, that's quite a nice little phrase. So I kind of remembered it. I kind of, whenever I'm in the world, which is pretty much every day, I kind of look out for things and try and pick stuff up. So that was one of the things I tried to remember. So about a year later, when we moved down to Kent and I found Adams, I thought that'd be quite nice to get them to set that in letterpress. So I'd used letterpress when I was at college, and because it's such an expensive medium to kind of like to build up that kind of stuff. Obviously, I couldn't afford that. I could afford 4p for a photocopy. So I went to Adams and said, "Can you print this for me? Can you make the top 2 words big and then the rest of it a bit smaller?" And that was my layout advice to them. So they set this poster, and we printed a few hundred copies. And I thought, that's great, I'll send it out to people. So I kind of sent it out to friends and stuff like that. And then after about a year or so, I started to get emails from people asking for copies of it. So I printed a few more and carried on printing. And then my wife had the amazing idea of selling them to people, which had never occurred to me. So we started selling them. So that was 2004, and we've just been printing them ever since. We've kind of lost count of the numbers, but it's quite a lot, millions probably. And I kind of look for pictures of it on the internet. So this is one of my favourite pictures of it, in the most bleak circumstances. I've made the photograph black and white to make it even worse. So yeah, I've kind of. It's just one of those things that's kind of gone out into the world, and it's kind of grown its own life, really. So yeah, work hard and be nice to people. So kind of like because that became successful, I thought, oh, typography is actually quite good. I should do more of that. So I kind of have now pretty much focused entirely on typography. Something that when I was at college I was really frightened of. So yeah, embrace your fear, people. So all this stuff, all these kind of like ideas and little phrases and things, it's just stuff that kind of constantly occurs to me, and then I kind of put it into work and kind of make things out of it. How are we doing for time?
All good.
We're all good?
So good.
All right. So I'm going to show you, so this is a giant print I made with a steamroller. Persistence. Oh. Hello. Oh, sorry. I just killed the vibe then. It's really gentle piano, really quiet. So yes, this is my studio. This is when the garden is finished now. It's not just piles of dirt anymore. So this is where I work. It's always got this amazing Technicolor sky, and it's perpetually early summer. And I work next to this big oak tree, and I think the oak tree kind of sends vibes into the studio that I tap into. I genuinely believe that. So I think it's so contrast this space was with the Royal College. So not only have I grown older and lost my hair, I've also become neater in the intervening years. So I think kind of working in this kind of space, it kind of just gives me time to kind of reflect and kind of work very quietly. Most of the time it's just myself and my wife in the studio kind of working together, and kind of it's just the ideal situation, really. I'm sorry to make you all jealous, but you know, it took a long time to get to this stage. So I think it's essential to kind of gather ideas and kind of come up with your own solutions to things. Kind of, you know, we're all swimming in this sea of kind of visual culture now, and kind of seeing so much stuff every day, and kind of it's very difficult to navigate through that and kind of make your own work very specific to yourself and not make it derivative of other things that you've seen. And I think because I come from the kind of analog era where things were much kind of harder to find, and you couldn't find information instantly. So I had to kind of burrow around for information. Whereas now, it's, you know, you can find out things instantly. And, you know, there are kind of benefits and disadvantages to that. And I think it's kind of like realising all that stuff, really. I sound like a really old person speaking now, but it's kind of finding what it is in yourself that you want to say, and what you want to say as a designer or communicator, and kind of being true to all that stuff, really. I'll whiz through this one quickly. So this is a project I've just did as part of Clerkenwell Design Week. It's with a friend of mine, Michael Marriott, who's a furniture designer. So we made a little stool to kind of go with the book, available in all good bookshops, and from my website, more importantly. So I think this is the last project I'm going to show you. I think as a designer, image maker, communicator, you know, I've always felt the felt the need to kind of respond to stuff that's going on, but it's very difficult to make work that has got a kind of political edge without kind of alienating a massive amount of people and kind of engaging a massive amount of people. It's a very fine line to kind of tread. But in this case, I think everyone agreed this is probably quite a bad thing that was happening. So this is the Gulf of Mexico 2010 oil spill. So I was contacted by this chap, Tom Gall. He was a creative at an ad agency in Brussels. He's quite an amazing creative. He still does lots. You should look at his Instagram. It's incredible. So yeah, that's better. So Tom contacted me and said, we've got an idea to print a poster using oil from the beach. So he said, can you design a poster for us? So I quickly put a design together, and then he went to Louisiana and collected the oil, and he took it to a screen printer in New Orleans and printed a poster. So this is the poster. So it's kind of, because of the oil and the sand, it completely destroyed the screen printing bed that they were using, but made this amazing poster. So we kind of launched it on, we made a website, launched it on social media and stuff, and then it was picked up and instantly kind of became something that a lot of people were kind of referencing. And as an upshot for that, I was interviewed on American TV, Breakfast TV Live, which was a very nerve-wracking experience.
An artist in London is using his creativity to shed light on the devastation brought on by this year's massive oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. His posters, Oil and Water Do Not Mix, are printed with the crude that washed ashore in Louisiana. Anthony Burrill is the man behind the screen prints and joins me now on Skype. Anthony, let's start. These are limited edition posters that you've created. Can you tell us more about this project?
Yeah, it was...
There you go. Thanks very much. Oh, just Googled it, Where do you get a steam? So yeah, the steamroller, that was through a gallery near Brighton called Ditchling Museum. So they organised the whole thing. So yeah, so they found out where the steamroller came from. But I think they drove the steamroller from somewhere in West London all the way down there. It took about 3 weeks. So you were asking about typography, and I think kind of just using it kind of physically, kind of getting off the screen and kind of cutting things out and kind of collaging. And I used to go through like old type catalogues and enlarge things up on the photocopier and then start cutting things. I think doing work physically is a way. I think your hand-to-eye coordination is much more direct than looking. I think when you've got stuff on screen, you just start lining things up because that's stuff looks good lined up on a screen. But I think when you're working physically, you kind of you can be much freer. So yeah, I think even though I kind of bang on about analog techniques all the time, I think everything now is kind of like shared digitally, and I suppose really my working method is just to think about stuff and just kind of mull things over. So I don't. Most of the time when I'm on the computer, I'm answering emails. Really, the rest of it, I don't really design too much on the computer. I kind of put things together just very simply. So I never really sit in front of the computer and try and have ideas. I kind of do that when I'm walking the dog or doing the washing up. So I think it's just that thing of kind of just being in the right creative mindset for doing things. So whether that's kind of by not trying to think of ideas, that's how I kind of think of ideas really. So I kind of try and take in all the information and then then kind of let that giant oak tree kind of give me the ideas, you know, like kind of, I don't know, I just sort of, I try not to analyse it too much. When I try and overanalyse things and I try to be kind of too clever, that's when it all falls apart. I think I just try and let things kind of rise to the surface, really. It's a very organic process, thinking of ideas.
Themselves, do they have licensing, or do you create your own letters?
Well, it's all letterpress, so it's made out of wood, and it's like 100 years old. So I kind of design typefaces as well. So yeah, I try, just the whole culture of kind of taking inspiration from other people's work is completely alien to me, really. I kind of don't, I don't prescribe to that way of working at all, really. So yeah, everything has kind of come from me. Force of nature, I think. But yeah, how was that? Was that, yeah? I just don't, I suppose it's a kind of a different working method, really, is you know, I suppose in a lot of ways I'm working more like an artist rather than a commercial designer, even though the work does get applied commercially in the end. Yeah, I was asking me about my biggest failure. So obviously I've never had any. It's kind of how you look at things, isn't it? If things end up really shit and you hate them, you think, I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to try and do something better next time. Yeah, what have I done that's been really awful? Yeah, we can't think. I think it's all that kind of, I suppose maybe kind of being in situations when I was working for a client that I wasn't really into, and it's all that thing when, because I worked for quite a while in advertising, and it was just that whole thing of you get art directed so much, and you reach that point where you say, well, why did you get me to do it? You know, I'm just operating the computer for you. So that's one of the reasons why I kind of stopped doing kind of work where I get art directed by an idiot. So I think it's learning from your mistakes and all that stuff. So yeah.
Who do you wish would call you to do a project, have you do a project for them? Were you like, I really want to do a project for?
NASA, probably.
NASA.
Yeah.
Got you.
Okay, great. Can you hook me up? I'd quite like to do like a giant poster on the moon. You know, print with a space rover. Because it'd last for millions of years then, wouldn't it? Yeah. So yeah, NASA or somebody like them. I don't mind, you know. So something in space, ideally. Yeah. I kind of, I just have little notebooks and I kind of draw things out. Just went on holiday, and I took a blank sketchbook and we had some felt tip pens, and I just sat by the pool, just kind of drawing kind of abstract stuff, and I just loved it. And it's just that I wasn't really doing it for any reason other than just the pure enjoyment of it. So yeah, I like to kind of draw things, and that doesn't necessarily end up in the work, but it's kind of part of the process. I think that, you know, the hand to eye stuff is really important. Well, it's like every one of those kind of decisions that you make. I think at the time the kind of print and poster things that I was doing was kind of taking off a bit, so I became less reliant on kind of commercial projects. So then it was just very gradual that I could become more choosy about what I was doing, and then kind of do less of the stuff that, you know, you're not too keen on, but that you do stuff, you know, just to pay the rent. But then, yeah, it's just like a slow process of saying, right, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to spend time doing this, and, you know, kind of investing time in yourself, really, to develop your own ideas and projects. That, because yeah, it's awful being told what to do by an idiot, isn't it? So nobody wants that. So I think kind of getting out of that situation and kind of making your own thing, and, you know, but I think by making your own creating your own ecosystem, really. I think that's what I've done. I've kind of created my own niche and my own world, and it all kind of, in a way, it's kind of self-perpetuating now. I just haven't, just got to make sure I don't do anything that messes it all up. So yeah, thanks.
Can I have a huge, huge round